Welcome everyone to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan. For this morning, we have an incredible, super badass actress. Her name is Joanna. So, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I love it. So, for those who don't know who is the amazing Joanna, please tell us.
Well, I'm an actress. I'm also a producer. Produce short films, feature films. I'm currently working on producing my second feature film. I'm also a stunt actor and former martial artist, so I get beat up in films and TV shows a lot.
Wow, and so you're basically doing everything here. I love it.
Well, everything, almost everything, not
I
quite.
love it. I love it. But tell me, like, where the journey begins. Where does this passion for acting started, basically?
Well, it started really young. My grandfather was a opera singer. My grandmother was a music teacher and a drama teacher in our small community. And I always grew up kind of wanting to be, Luke Skywalker
Okay.
or a fighter pilot in Top Gun or all these things. And I finally realized maybe I just want to be an actor.
Mm,
I just want
yeah.
to be everything.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's really where it started. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and like somehow it is true the fact that as an actor you get the chance to experience so many different roles, right? I mean, we're talking from police, yeah, from cop to doctor to lawyer to president to senator to professional athlete to superhero, like all the different stuff.
To
I find pretty
criminal,
cool.
to bad guy, to all those things that,
Absolutely. To
we
even a
get to play
monster.
around with, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And tell me, like, what were some of the challenges that you had when you were making those first, like those first steps on your acting career?
Well, the challenges were, to me, I think, really quite unique from my compatriots because I wasn't born in Canada. I was born in Poland and we emigrated here and we really didn't have anything. So I actually started acting really late compared to most people because, I had to beg, borrow, and steal any
Totally.
acting classes, any drama classes. My first drama courses were paid for by working for the school, that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. So it was a lot of trying to fund those resources myself with a part-time job because my parents, they weren't really super enthusiastic about me going into the arts.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, they didn't have the resources to pay for photographers and pay for acting lessons and pay for all these things. So I really had to do it all myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And like especially like, I mean, besides being like super expensive, of course, it is so interesting that even till this day, whenever you want to say that you want to focus on the art, acting, music, you will still have like, I mean, you will still be have the answer like, are you sure, or like, do you should definitely do something else instead of that, like it's so interesting that even to this day we still have like that yeah, like that they will tell you that over and over, you know what I mean?
That perspective. Well, I
Mm.
think it's because it's a really tough industry,
So
not just acting, but also music and visual arts. And it's um, such a difficult industry and such a fickle industry that a lot of the time talent and capability are not necessarily indicators of success. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? There's
Hmm.
so many incredibly talented artists that I know who just can't earn a living. And that's just the reality of it. And it has nothing to do with how hard they work or how talented they are. They
Yeah.
just can't, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I can understand that. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you just want to do what makes you happy, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be delivered to you easy. So
No, and the thing is, I think there's a disconnect between like do what makes you happy and the idea that you're gonna get all your bills paid through that. You may
mm,
not.
mm,
A lot of the actors that I know in Toronto, which is where I'm based, who are working consistently in film and in TV and have a great career, they still have a supplemental job to pay for all those things that we need in life, like food, rent, housing, all that kind of
oh
stuff
yeah, oh yeah,
because it's just life is expensive overall, and if you're an artist you need to have something on the side. It's just the way it goes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it is getting like crazy expensive. Also, I remember back like a few months ago, I was like speaking with with some friends of mine, And we were saying like, do you remember like how much things were cost? I mean, like candy, chips, all of that stuff. Like how much expensive they were as it is right now. That right now is like super crazy expensive. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think the
absolutely.
key is, follow your passion and then have something that makes you happy as well. You know what I mean? On the side.
Yeah,
So if your passion is music, then yeah, follow that. But then there's something else that will make you feel contented, that will bring you extra money, and that's a good thing to have too.
yeah, absolutely. Because you might need like, for example, if it is music, you might need some new instruments or new cables, new headphones, something like that. And if you have like a side job, you can get those, by working on that. And I mean, I also know some people that they are pursuing, either acting or music as well, and they will be, yeah, working on side jobs here and there to make a living, and with that money, they will be able to sustain their
Yeah.
passion. So yeah, I mean, at the end, as we were saying, I mean, at the end, it's about doing what you like, but at the same time, you need to eat, So
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. But anyway, so moving on here and focusing like a little bit on your acting career, tell me like how
Hmm.
you prepare a character. Now we understand, of course, that depends on the role, but what is your initial approach on this character creation process?
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're lucky enough, you get a script where you go NAR, no acting required.
Okay.
You just relate 100% and you don't even have to jump in
Hmm.
to creating a character. You just have to go into your script analysis and find out what your actions and beats are. But sometimes um, there's a disconnect, and then that's when you have to start deep diving into what are this person's motivations, what are their fears, what are they, what kind of person is this, where did they grow up, what experiences led them to make the choices that brought them here.
Hmm.
And once you start thinking about that, I mean, we are all a product of our history and our past and our choices. So once
Yeah.
I start thinking about that character's choices and that character's um, motivations that brought them to this moment, and then you start gleaning onto things that, oh, I relate to that, I relate to that, I've been in a similar situation, and that's how you draw and build the character that you're not familiar with. And
Hmm.
then once you have the character, I mean, that's where the script analysis, the beats, the actions, what are the goals in the scene, what are the goals overall, all that comes into play. Yeah.
And like, how challenging can it be when you are about to play a character that has either an emotional scene or something that you haven't experienced at all? Like how you manage to kind of put your head and be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this, but I haven't like experienced it on my real life.
um it's called keying, or a very simple transference. I I've they like to make me cry in a lot of TV shows and movies.
Okay.
That's the thing they
Okay.
like to make me do. They
Okay.
like to threaten me or break me down and cry. And a lot of these things, I haven't experienced. One of the shows, they put a gun to my head and threaten me, and of course break down and cry. Another show, it's a hospital. They tell me my son died, and I break down and cry.
Oh Jesus.
I
Okay.
know, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't experienced those losses, but I have a child. So to take a moment and put myself in a situation of what, like, really visually imagine what that loss would feel like. And I've
Hmm.
lost other people in my life, so then I can build on that. And then once you're there, like, you just go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
and how many of us haven't been in a situation where we felt afraid for life, whether or not that's a natural disaster, or you're in a car accident or any of that. Like, you just bring those emotions, you take yourself back into that moment, and then put it in the scene. Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole other process, right? The fact, I mean, creating a character that perhaps some people might think, which is just learn your lines, and that's it, And I find pretty cool the fact that you get so into it, because at the end you want to play, a relatable character, right? I mean, a character that fits perfectly, but also that the audience, once we see the final product, we can totally relate. And I find also that pretty cool when once we see, TV show or film, and suddenly you love this character, and there's something about his character that you care about, and you're like, please don't kill him. I mean, especially if it is like a show like Game of Thrones, for example, you're like
Yeah.
begging, like, please don't kill him, you know. And
And
I
of course
find,
they do.
and of course they do, and they totally break your heart, and you're totally messed up after that. But I find that pretty interesting, the fact that you can get related for someone out of nowhere that is
Hmm.
that has like nothing in common with you, but on that moment something clicks on it and you actually care about it. So I found it pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's just the human experience. I mean, who hasn't experienced loss,
Yeah,
heartbreak, betrayal, hope dashed, things
yeah,
like that. So
yeah,
we relate to that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And to me, like, what, like, has it ever happened to you that there was this character that you were about to play, but there was something about it that took you longer, that took you the most to get it done?
Um, yeah. I played a character who was frankly completely evil.
Okay. Okay.
Evil mastermind, basically.
Mm.
And when I first came up with this, when I first got the script, the whole season of the show was a web series. Um, it was a little like, okay, how do I? This is an evil character, but how do I go more than the surface?
Yeah.
And so that's when I started deep diving into villains and bad guys and watching TV shows. And the key is that a villain never thinks they're a villain, right? They always think they're doing something right, something for the greater good, and
Mm.
sacrifices have to be made. Now, of course, that's a warped perspective from the audience's view, but that's the internal sort of justification. Nobody thinks they're a bad guy.
True.
Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
So it really, and that was a challenge. I had to sit and be like, okay, well, why am I right? Why am I doing the right thing? Why is my vision for the world, why is my vision for the lives of these people better than theirs? And so that was really challenging, and that was really hard because I don't I'm not a person who likes to hurt other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And tell me, like, how you managed to, like, to break character. So you perform and you're like, okay, it's done. So how you managed to get over the character and return to the real let's say.
um I try I try not to go too far out of it during the shooting day, because it does take a while to get into it. But at the end of the day, you have to shake it off. You have to shake off all your characters, whether or not they're villains, whether or not you're being tortured, whether or not you're going through all these horrible things. You have to be able to go there and come back out. And one thing that I would recommend to any actor, whether they're starting out, in the middle, or at the end of their journey, therapy. Therapy really
Okay.
helps you make friends with your demons and makes you not afraid of the dark places in your soul, so that you can go there, you can touch that, and then come back out and be okay and go back to your family.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, at the end, I do think all the time, I do think that, like, in general, you need a little bit of therapy here, like every now and then, So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I love it. But moving on here, like, a little bit, tell me, what has been some of the worst auditions you ever had?
Oh, worst auditions. Oh. Um Worst auditions. Oh, for sure. There's been one where I went into the audition and I had prepared 3 pages that they had given me, and I prepared that, and then they threw a scene at me that was basically just a scenario and an improv, and I had to improvise for 15 minutes straight, being held captive in the back of a truck, and with my captor talking to me, and it was just, I walked out of it afterwards and I was like, why did I even do that? Why did I say yes to that? That was just
Mm,
horrendous.
yeah, yeah, that's crazy. And tell me, like, how you manage to know from to go like to real auditions and to kind of the shady ones, because I mean, I would assume that sometimes you will get like this call and you will check the audition and it looks, like a little bit weird, or you'll be like, like, how you manage to distinguish between the real ones and the not so real ones, let's say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's more of a problem when you're non-union. So for non-union actors, you really have to pay attention to where the audition is. Um, Never go to somebody's apartment, never go to a hotel room,
Okay.
because that right away is a signal. And anybody who's holding an audition, even a non-union producer, there are rental places for $10 an hour. Condos have conference rooms, things like that. So even if you're bare bones, you can book out your conference room and have the audition there, not in your apartment, not things like that. So that's number one. Always Google. I mean, Google the
Yeah.
person's names, Google the company. Acting is a pretty small community and people talk, so it starts to get around. And then, anytime I felt even vaguely unsure, I always had a girlfriend that I would text with the address, the phone number, the contact, the info. I'm going in. I will text you as soon as I'm out. If I don't text you, something's up.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's
just
cool.
this things like that. And I mean, luckily I've never had to call on that. I've never had that experience.
Yeah.
um but it's always good to be proactive about things like that, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely. Yeah, and like especially if you're new, especially like if you are new
Mm-hmm.
new like in the whole thing. I mean, you're naive, so you don't know like much of it. So um and that's one of the things that I hope that I've also have discovered, throughout this whole podcast that I created, that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when they were like starting out, they will have like some kind of weird experiences. So and yeah, it's crazy because at the end you just want to work on your craft, make it happen. So
Yeah,
it's sad that sometimes you will run up with not very cool people. So
yeah. I mean, at the end of it, trust your gut. Trust your
yeah,
gut. If it feels fishy, just say no. There's always going to be another opportunity.
absolutely, absolutely. And what has been some of the either weirdest or awkward comments you have received towards your acting career?
um Weirdest or awkward? I don't really feel that I've received weird or awkward comments. Um, I guess just because I don't take things personally.
Mm,
It's a very visual based medium, so I've had
totally.
comments of like, she's too short, she's too tall, she's too dark, she's too light, she's too
Mm,
this. And I mean, I could take it all personally, but I really understand that it has nothing to do with me. It's just that person's perspective and just that person's viewpoint and what they're seeing for it. So I guess I haven't really received a lot of weird comments in that respect. I know um, one time I had an audition for a film for a gig, on a live hosting gig, and I walked out and I called my agent and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I didn't get that job because I said yippee ki motherfucker,
yeah, I love it. That's pretty cool. I
and
love it.
then I booked it. So
There you
and I
go.
had that gig for 3 years. So
There you
so you
go.
never know what's gonna happen. You never know what's gonna turn into a fun gig and what's gonna just completely flop. Just
Yeah.
go in there and be you.
Yeah, I mean it's so interesting the fact that whenever you're like it's not gonna happen, it ended up happening, and when you're like this is totally gonna happen, sometimes it doesn't. So I find that
No.
pretty interesting, and also like about like the whole critiques and everything. Somebody once told me that like critiques, bad reviews, bad comments, all of that is like a rock. Basically, you can choose either to pick it up or just leave it on the ground and keep moving forward,
Yeah.
which is I mean
Yeah.
which is hard, of course. It requires a lot of practice, but because I mean let's face it, nobody likes being rejected or being called
No.
that's I mean nobody, right? But I do think that it's a work it's a work that you need to practice and practice to kind of at some point be like, yeah, it happens, and just move forward. So
Yeah. And I can tell you right now, being a producer and having been on the other side of the casting table where I'm calling in actors and actresses for their second audition or their third audition, um, it has nothing to do with that individual, especially once if you're good at the craft, the conversation isn't are they doing the right thing? The
mm,
conversation is this how we imagined the character being?
mm-hmm,
And that is not a critique. That's just our artistic vision. That's the
totally.
team then discussing what is our artistic vision. And this person doesn't necessarily fit, but this one does. Even though they're both equally talented and equally capable, it's just this is what we imagined it to be. That's
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end, as you were saying, you want to make the story as relatable as possible and trying to take care of those small details here and there. So, I get it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Now, let's say that one day I call you and I tell you that I want to become an actor. Now, I don't have any experience at all, zero. So, what advice would you give to me as someone who just turned 30 and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw everything away and start from scratch and go like 100% to this acting career.
Well, my first advice would be make sure that you don't quit your job immediately because you need to
Okay,
eat.
noted. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a very practical, logistical kind of a person. That's just how I've always been. So
Totally.
my advice would immediately be completely realistic. Make sure you still have a job. Make sure you keep doing that. Because you're going to need the resources. You're going to need headshots. You're going to need acting classes. Go research the reputable acting coaches.
Yeah.
Find one that works for you, that you relate to, and start studying with them. It doesn't happen overnight. So if you're going to go full force into any arts, honestly, whether it's acting or music or whatever your dream is, throw yourself into the education of it.
Mm.
Learn the skills, learn the knowledge, learn the terminology, learn about the business of it, and then you are fully armed to know where you fit into it. And then you can just go like jump off and fly rather than jump off and crash.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll make sure that if I become an actor and one day I receive an Oscar for best actor, I'm gonna mention you on my thank you speech.
Thanks.
Count on it. Yeah. But I mean I mean I love the fact that you're being like super realistic, and be like, I mean it's cool, but make sure that you have an income coming by, otherwise you're gonna be feeling miserable, or
Well,
not miserable, but you're gonna feel stressed about it, because
yeah.
I mean that's like, I mean at the end, as we were saying before, the fact that you want, I mean you need like a place to sleep, to eat, to kind of regroup, and sometimes if you throw everything away and be like just gonna focus 100% on that, I mean that's gonna take time. And due to right now how the whole world runs, the fact that if you want something you will get it like this, like the worth process now, and the word that it's gonna take some time, it tends to kind of a little bit frustrate us, because
Hmm.
we already got used to another kind of lifestyle, and somehow.
Yeah, and I have seen people quit their job and throw themselves 100% into acting, and they are incredibly talented people, but like I said, it's a really tough industry and it's a
Absolutely.
fickle industry, and after 6 months they've burned through all their savings and they give up and they go back to that old job, and they just feel crushed. And I'm like, if you had just it's a marathon, not a sprint.
There you go.
If you had just paced yourself, you'd be there. And you're so talented and you're such a loss to the industry because you just kind of went like that instead of get educated, keep your support going,
Mm.
keep your friends, keep your job, maybe go part-time, don't quit completely, that kind of
Yeah, of
stuff.
course. Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
And like, let's say, one day, Netflix, HBO Max, I mean, you name it, they call you and they tell you that they got this idea of a film in which goes that all of the characters you have played at the moment, they're gonna gather to celebrate your birthday, but but the film needs a name. So how would you call it?
Oh, um tragedy hereafter.
I like it. It sounds like some drama on it, some comedy as well, right?
Yeah, like I said, most of my characters they like to make me cry or get beat up, or I do evil things, or I'm in a fight and I die. So there's a lot of
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like a birthday that I wouldn't want to go.
no.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like murder will be involved at some point, so.
Definitely things will break and punches will be thrown for sure.
Okay, okay. Now, what about describing your whole career but on a drink?
Oh, I would say Scotch neat.
Okay. And
It's
how,
uh
uh-huh.
it's straightforward. It's definitely a hard drink, and but satisfying.
And like, how would you call it? Let's say I go to a bar and I wanna order that drink. How do I call it?
Survivor.
I like it. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
it sounds like a drink I would definitely order to because it sounds interesting, like Survivor. Why? I want to know why. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting, especially some of the action and stunt work that I've done. Like I said, I because I'm a small, petite woman, like I said, they tend to like to beat me up and kill me. So a lot of the times I get thrown around, I get, head smashed, I get thrown off tall buildings, falling to my death, all kinds of stuff. And it's it, I walk away with a smile. So
I mean, and now that you mentioned like stunts, I'm curious like how you deal with injuries, or I mean, I would assume that sometimes it will happen that you land the wrong way and it hurts. Like how you manage to just keep up performing on stunts with some injuries like here and there.
um well, so I used to be a martial artist, kung fu. I taught kung fu, weaponry, and tai chi. And so throughout the training, to get to the level that I got at, you learned how to take a fall from the first class. From your beginner class, all you practice is falls, front falls, shoulder falls, back falls, rolls, everything.
Mm.
So the idea is to minimize any sort of injury. Injuries do happen, and if you hurt, there's a difference between what I call hurt and injury.
Mm.
Hurt will happen.
Yeah.
Because muscles get sore, things get strained. I mean, I did a scene where my fellow stunt actor grabbed my head, grabbed my back, and smashed my head into a metal floor. And we did that scene probably about 30 times.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. And I had a headache, and you take a Tylenol. Why did I have a headache? Because your brain's sloshing around in your skull, and after a while, it hurts.
Uh-huh.
And that's the difference. That was a hurt, not an injury. My brain was fine. I was just hurting. Versus an injury, very often you can't keep shooting on an injury because then you're just going to cause problems later. You need to address it immediately. And if you're working with the right people, then those injuries don't happen. There's multiple steps involved. When I did a low high fall, the day before shooting, the stunt coordinator set it up, and he had a stunt double test it before I tested it, and I tested it twice that day so that we were ready for shooting the following day. And the following day, before we even shot, we tested it again and reset up, etc. So there's a lot of prep to do so that injuries don't happen. And yeah, did it hurt? Did it hurt falling into boxes about 20 times? Yeah, it hurt, but I didn't injure myself, and that's the difference.
And what you usually do after a day of stunts? Like how you relax to be like, okay, let's relax now.
Epsom salt bath. Drain all that pain and tension away from the muscles, and then have a little Scotch neat.
There you go. Some Survivor.
Yep.
So, I love it. And like my last question here is like, what motivates you? We all have those days that we just want to quit. And it's sometimes interesting because nothing bad is happening, but still we get into this idea that we're not good enough. That we have wasted our time. Anyway, So how you manage to get out of those thoughts and be back on this road that you have built for so many years
now? Well, so I have a daughter. She's 12 and a half years old, and when I had my daughter, a few months in, it really motivated me to start my photography business. That's my day job.
Yeah.
And it motivated me to really move forward with my acting career because I wanted to be a woman that my daughter could look up to. It didn't matter what my level of success was. I just wanted her to see somebody who was following their passions, doing it well, and being smart about it. And that really kept me going for the last 12 and a half years.
Yeah.
And just recently, a few months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh,
My prognosis is excellent, but I will be going through treatment and I will be going through surgery. And that in itself has reinvigorated the fact that, you have one life. That's it. That's
yeah.
all we're given. We're given one go around, and at any second, it can be taken away from you. So there's no point leaving, what you want to do to next year if you can do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, I do think the same. That we only have one life, and yeah, it's at the same time scary that it takes only 1 second to basically ruin it all, or to not maybe like not ruining it, but changing it like 360. Like a total spin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is scary because once you realize that, you're like at any moment, and I do think that sometimes we take things from granted. For example, that we are like, yeah, I can do this tomorrow or the next day or next month, but you never know what is going to happen. So I would say the same, why not make the full of it, why not make the full
Yeah.
of it each day, and not and actually be sure that once you go to bed, you'd be like, I did what I wanted for today, let's see what happens tomorrow. So
Yeah, and it's also freeing because everything can change in a second. So a lot of the things that we stress about don't matter,
absolutely.
and our future is never assured. I got, like I said, I got my cancer diagnosis a few months ago, and 2.5 weeks later, I jumped into producing a new film that we're hoping to go to camera for in the summer. Now, I'm hoping, if everything goes well, that I will be ready to go. But I can't be sure of that. I can't be sure of anything. But I'm going ahead and doing it. And in the meantime, planning and sorting and going to the doctors and moving forward. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because who knows what next
Absolutely.
year will bring.
I
Yeah.
mean, and let me just tell you that that's badass. I mean, I mean, that's, yeah, that that's like the badass I was looking, because it is. I mean, the fact that you're still moving forward, and the fact that you're like, it's okay. I'm gonna still be doing this and this, and be able to keep moving, because I've met few people here and there that they got diagnosed with that, and they just kind of want to kind of like, what's the word of it, like
Give
get
up?
away, like
Oh,
actually like get away from everyone, to kind of be on their own, kind of be alone and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna like be away. But the fact that you're like making things happen, I would assume that is not like an easy thing to be like, oh, I have diagnosed with that. But like the fact that you're doing it and that you're pushing forward, I mean, that's badass. I mean, that's really cool, because yeah,
thanks.
I mean, what else can I say? It's amazing.
Thanks. It's great. It's great to be excited about another project. It's great to think about all the stunts that will be involved, all the fights that will be involved in the
Absolutely.
film. We're making an action horror, so it's fun and it's scary and it's terrifying. And I'm thinking about making sure that I'm back in fighting form after treatment, ready for filming. But somehow it will coalesce.
There you go. And as I said, I'm super sure that everything will be all right. I mean, as I said, I mean, you're super badass. So it's eventually that everything's gonna be okay. I mean, we all know that. Absolutely. I mean, at the end, what can I say? I love what you do. I love your career, and I love the fact that like all the positive, like all the yeah, like all the positive vibes that you had on it, and the fact that you still keep moving forward, and pushing and showing people that at the end of the day, dreams are possible, but at the same time, you are also showing the work on it. You also be like, okay, dreams are possible, yes, but there's this huge amount of work that you need to do it, and the fact that you're doing it as well, I mean, it's impressive and it's amazing, and I'm super sure that our next conversation is going to be check out my new action figure or something crazy, because it is more than obvious that more and more and more incredible, epic things are going to come in your life like this. Hear me on that.
I hope so. From your words to God's ears.
There you go. There you go. Also, want to thank those who watched this video. Thank you so much for watching. Either if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to go follow Joanna like right now. I mean, the video's over, so I'm gonna leave in the description below her link to her Instagram so you can follow her. Let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Joanna because she's amazing. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe. It helps a lot. And again, Joanna, thank you so much for making this happen. Have an incredible rest of the week. Keep inspiring and keep showing that everything's possible because you are doing it. Keeping a badass. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you go.